Tonight, frightening ordeal. A man is charged with kidnapping in Dawson Creek. Grass fire. A fire breaks out near a school in Wanowan. And offering help. Free food and clothing for tenants affected by an apartment fire. Good evening and thank you for joining us. And we begin with a scary incident in Dawson Creek this morning. One person is in police custody after a young girl was allegedly kidnapped. The police responded to a dropped 911 call around 4 a.m. They were able to make contact with the girl. Officers found her in the 11,000 block of 13th Street. The sources tell CJDC-TV News there was no injuries reported to the victim, but David Dennis was located by police and taken into custody. Dennis is now facing one count of kidnapping and one count of invitation to sexual touching under the age of 16. The grass fire broke out near the elementary school in Wanowan. The fire grew to 4 hectares in size and spread into some nearby trees. A crew of 3 firefighters and a response officer were sent to the scene. 2 structures on Wanowan Subdivision Road caught fire. The BC Wildfire Service is not allowed to fight structure fires, so all they could do is stand back and prevent it from spreading. The fire is now being held. It's believed to be human-caused. Police in Fort St. John are asking for the public's help in locating a missing woman. Mounties are searching for Alicia Garcia. The 37-year-old was reported missing on Wednesday, and police are concerned for her safety. She was last seen at the courthouse in Fort St. John. Garcia is being described as standing 5 feet 8 inches tall, weighing 170 pounds. She has dyed purple hair and brown eyes. Anyone with any information on her whereabouts is being asked to contact the Fort St. John RCMP. Help is being provided for tenants who were forced from their homes after Friday's apartment fire in Fort St. John. The Veronica apartment building was set on fire after a man shot at 2 people, then drove his car into the burning building. Now, the Fort St. John Women's Resource Center is offering free food and clothing and hygiene products to those in need. The center is also accepting donations to help displaced residents. The building was severely damaged in the fire, and it's unclear at this point when or if the residents will be allowed to return home. Construction is begun on the new BC Children's Hospital Center in Vancouver for young people with complex care needs.
This new center that will be built behind me is expected to serve nearly 2,500 patients and their families annually. The center will provide patients with a better care experience by connecting them all with the services that they need through a central care team.
The 3-story center is being called a first of its kind in Canada. It'll offer in-person and virtual care for children and youth all over British Columbia and the Yukon. Construction is expected to be completed by December 2027, with the center scheduled to open in early 2028. Well, BC Hydro has hit a major milestone with the number of electric vehicle charging stations across the province. Hydro has tripled the size of its charging network over the past year alone. There are now 591 charging ports across the province, and that amounts to more than 1 port being installed per day. The utility also says it has opened 22 new hubs located in every region of the province, which feature 8 to 22 charging ports. Hydro is aiming to expand the network to 800 ports by next spring. Some unexpected developments today in the sexual assault trial of 5 former Canadian junior hockey players. Soon after the accused, the jury and the attorneys gathered at the courthouse this morning, the judge declared a mistrial. Here's CTV's Nick Paparella with what happened.
It's a startling turn of events after a 14-member jury was selected on Tuesday for the sexual assault trial of 5 former Canadian World Junior hockey players. Justice Maria Caracia walked into the courtroom Friday morning, called in the jurors, and declared a mistrial, simply saying, "Good morning, members of the jury. I'm sorry to have to tell you that I have declared a mistrial in this case. As a result of that, this jury is discharged. Thank you for your service. You are now free to go." Thursday was tied up with legal arguments after an abrupt halt to the proceedings the day before. Justice Caracia made her decision and informed the court of her intention. However, we are not permitted to report why a mistrial was declared due to a ban on publication. Since the court was aware of the mistrial, another jury panel with dozens of prospective jurors was summoned to the London courthouse. And by late afternoon, a new 11-woman, 5-man jury was selected, with 2 of them being alternates.
Things happen in a trial. It's hard to speculate.
Joseph Newberger is a criminal defense lawyer.
Sometimes certain issues may arise that might have, in a way, compromised the jury panel, and then that comes to the attention of the judge or one of the lawyers, and therefore the judge would be alerted to this issue. Then there would be a discussion with both the defense and the Crown and determine if there's a way to avoid a mistrial, and if there isn't, then the safest thing to do in order to protect the integrity of the fairness of the trial process is to declare a mistrial and then pick a new jury fresh.
Like the media, the 5 defendants in this case, Alex Formanton, Cal Foote, Dylan Dubé, Carter Hart, and Michael McLeod, were all aware of what was going to happen, and like everyone else, sat in the courtroom as a new jury was chosen. The 5 men are charged in connection with an alleged incident involving a lone female at a downtown London hotel room in June of 2018. All of them have pled not guilty. Evidence is expected to be heard on Monday or Tuesday in this case. Barring any further delays, the trial is still slated to last 8 weeks. Nick Paparella, CTV News.
Well, to the campaign trail now, where for the main party leaders, this is their last chance to get out their message to Canadians. As we head into the last weekend of the campaign, they made a highly strategic stops across the country today, looking for gains or to hold on to tight races. CTV's Jeremy Sharon reports.
A morning campaign stop in Saskatoon for Pierre Poilievre today saw the Conservative leader promise to get right to work if elected.
The bad news for the politicians is your summer vacation is cancelled.
Poilievre vowed to keep Parliament open all summer until MPs pass legislation on key platform promises. He also pitched Canadians on how his party would handle Donald Trump's tariffs.
We need to take direct action to end the tariff chaos with a position of strength, not by spreading lies to exaggerate, as Mr. Carney has done, but rather by becoming more self-reliant, strong, and sovereign.
While visiting a steel plant in Sault Ste. Marie today, U.S. President Donald Trump's trade war was a top priority for Mark Carney, too.
This is Canada. We decide what we do here.
Campaigning today in a riding where the Liberal incumbent is in a tight 3-way race, Carney emphasized the importance of the Canadian steel industry, which has been hit with 25% tariffs.
So he's threatening Canadian workers in auto manufacturing and workers throughout the industry's supply chain, including here at Algoma.
Campaigning in Toronto, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh had a pitch for the role his party could play.
The only way, and proven by our history, Liberals do the right thing are when New Democrats force them to do it.
As both the NDP and the Bloc Québécois in the final days of this campaign focus on who is best suited to hold the balance of power.
Sadly, the Bloc is basically a useless party.
If I were Mr. Singh, I would do anything not to be compared with the Bloc Québécois at present time.
Now, as we enter the final weekend of the campaign, expect leaders to make a fast and furious push to the finish, with stops scheduled across the country in the coming days. Jeremy Sharon, CTV News, Ottawa.
Town officials in Banff are speaking out against the location of a designated spot for protesters that will be set up during the G7 summit this June. The summit is scheduled for Kananaskis from June the 15th to the 17th. A demonstration zone will be in place in a parking lot near Central Park in downtown Banff. RCMP in charge of G7 security say the spot was chosen because it's close to Banff Centre, where the media will stay. Now, Mounties say the decision has been made, but the town of Banff wants changes and considers the location just a proposal. The town says the demonstration zone will increase traffic congestion and create challenges for both residents and visitors, and a former Banff mayor is also concerned.
Sometimes protests are difficult to manage, and Banff will be a very busy place at that time. So we want to make sure that if there is something like that going on, that it is contained, and the town of, and you know, our visitors are not compromised by something like that.
The downtown location is just one of the spots that's being designated for protesters. The U.S. president has claimed he's spoken with China's president about the ongoing trade war, but Beijing is insisting that didn't happen. As he departed for the Pope's funeral, Donald Trump was asked when the supposed discussion took place.
I spoke to him numerous times. So we're leaving and going to Rome, where we'll be attending the funeral of Pope Francis. Some of you are going to go. Anybody going? And it's going to be very interesting. We're going to meet with a lot of the foreign leaders. They want to meet. Trade deals are going very well.
Trump also renewed comments about making Canada the 51st state. In an interview published by Time magazine today, he was asked he was, quote, trolling in his suggestions. He'd like to see the U.S. take over Canada, Greenland, and Panama. Trump insisted he was not. Meanwhile, today there was dramatic escalation in tensions between the White House and the U.S. courts over President Trump's immigration crackdown. FBI agents arrested County Judge Hannah Dugan in Wisconsin. It follows an incident last week at her courthouse. Court documents say plainclothes immigration officers arrived there to arrest a suspect. The person was on trial for domestic abuse and was in the U.S. illegally. Well, FBI Director Kash Patel claims the judge told the ICE agents to leave. Patel says the judge aided the suspect in evading arrest.
This country has a system of checks and balances and a separation of powers for good reason. And we all saw today a direct attack on this system. It is clear that FBI is politicizing this situation to make an example of her and others across the country who oppose these attacks on the judicial system and our nation's immigration laws.
The judge is being charged with obstruction. Wisconsin's governor and other critics say the Trump administration is undermining the courts and is pushing the country towards a constitutional crisis. Also today, disgraced former U.S. Congressman George Santos was sentenced to more than 7 years in prison. The New York Republican was convicted on aggravated identity theft and wire fraud. The charges were in connection with his 2022 midterm campaign. Santos pleaded guilty back in August. He said in a letter to the judge that he takes full responsibility for his crimes. He was also ordered to pay more than $373,000 in restitution. Russian authorities say a senior military officer has been killed in a car explosion. Russia's top criminal investigation agency says a homemade explosive device was placed under the general's car just outside of Moscow. They're investigating the attack, which happened on the same day Russia's President Vladimir Putin and U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff discussed ending the war in Ukraine. More than 25 million people filed past the open casket of Pope Francis at St. Peter's Basilica over the past 3 days. The viewing period is now over as final preparations are being made for tomorrow's funeral. CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin reports.
A sea of mourners passed through the main door of St. Peter's Basilica day and night. Still, as the gates were closed, many had to be turned away. We're too late, she says. It's so unfortunate. During an evening prayer service, the casket of Pope Francis was sealed. This in preparation for a final farewell for the funeral of a shepherd, not of a sovereign, says the Vatican.
I began to see how he was drawn.
Bishop William McGrattan heads the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops. He reflected on the Pope's humility as he filed past his casket.
As I was sort of moving through the Basilica, if I stopped, I found people coming up and asking for prayers and for blessings. There was a couple of times where some of the guards asked me to move on. So I realized that people are drawn to this moment. They feel close to God and Pope Francis.
The 149 cardinals present in Rome this morning held a meeting putting finishing touches on the day to come. Security has been stepped up. This ahead of the arrival of dignitaries, including political leaders from around the globe and royalty. Not far from the Vatican, an artist reflected on the guest list with a mural calling it a parade of hypocrisy. But some hope the funeral will unite people from around the world in a moment of reflection.
St. Peter's is something profound.
Toronto's Falguni Debnath says the Pope has a special place in her heart. She converted to Catholicism last year and flew to Rome for the funeral.
The way he lived his life is a way that is almost out of fashion, because he refused to be defined by polarities.
Moving around the square will be next to impossible with so many people expected at the funeral. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Rome.
All right, please do stay tuned. I'll be right back after the break with a look at the weekend weather.